but we will be doing a small prioritization exercise at the end where we will kind of tier them. First tier, so you'll choose 5 for that first tier, and then second tier, you'll choose 5 to help prioritize what can we actually get done in 2 years, what can we actually get done in 5 years, so that we can then create strategies and actions that are tied to either the board or the staff so that they can move forward and we can make it a living, breathing, actionable housing plan. So I'm going to start with this PowerPoint here and go over just really quick, high level, and I'll set a timer for myself so I don't take too much time. Also, you can ask questions at any point. So it's a conversation. The reason it's work group style is because it's not, a formal presentation. We're going to be talking through positives and negatives of different strategies and goals, and ultimately, this is your plan, and I want everyone to kind of be on board and understand what some of the recommendations are. So, all right. So one of the things, I just want to remind everyone is, why do we create a housing plan? And we create these housing plans in order to coordinate actions and funds, which is part of what we're going to be talking about. How do we connect and collaborate to get work done, right? It is to create comprehensive policy solution. It's to create unification of the county as a whole. So the county has a housing plan, the city has a housing plan, Oshtemo Township has a housing plan. It looks like a lot of our neighbors are looking at a lot of these issues, and so how do we make sure that we're moving in coordination or collaboration in some way, and what does that look like? And then also, housing is a key component of activating our workforce and our businesses. Businesses can't expand and our workforce can't grow if we're not providing adequate and affordable housing, right? So in this plan, so if you turn the page, next page here in our little paper slideshow, we're going to be looking at we have housing assessment, so we look at demographics, who lives here, how has that changed, who's renter, owner, makeup, etc. And then look at housing types and housing demand projections, as well as, that's what we're going to talk about today, is strategies. So how do we fill these gaps? And one of the things that sometimes we hear is, I don't want any more housing anywhere. And I want to just, address that feedback by saying that, it's really hard to choose not to grow. Your community either is stagnant and it declines in population, or you see a growth in housing prices because people want to live here, but there's not a lot of options, and so supply and demand triggers an increase in costs, or there's a growth in housing stock for people who want to come here, right? But it's up to the Planning Commission to decide, how fast does that happen and what type of housing goes where, right? But we can't stop the world from turning, and so we need to figure out how we can go with the flow and make sure that we are accommodating the growth and the needs of the people that live in our community. The next slide 6 is just a reminder of this kind of planning issues that we experience with this, many people who want low density and want low taxes can't always have, all the services, right? The municipality has to operate, ideally not at a cost deficit, but the municipality ideally would operate in a way that has a nice ROI, rate of return, that there is this, that you're not going in debt, right, to make things happen. And so there are some constraints when we make these decisions as far as strategies is, if you want more stable services and you want low density, more people are going to have to pay for those stable services in order to make those things work. So just kind of a quick reminder of how some of the push and pull at this level, at the municipal level, works. And how we can't have everything, but we can do our best with what we have. So. continuum, and this is something that we've talked about at the county and at other municipalities as far as making a place for everybody within the community. We want to make sure that no matter what life stage someone is in, that they can still live next to their family and friends and in the community that they enjoy. And yeah, doesn't mean Comstock has to have all of these, considering, you know, its size and its population, and maybe it leans on its neighbors a little bit. But considering, okay, you know, what different stages can we support here? If we have an aging population, or we're seeing a demand for certain housing types, making sure that we're filling in that housing continuum so that no matter what life stage people are in, there's a shelter for them. The demand, so this is actually a newer number that we haven't discussed yet, but the demand for Kalamazoo County is 8,000 units, and based on that, we have calculated the demand for Comstock Township to be around 175 units, and that's based on population, that's based on building trends, and that is just, you know, kind of a goal to shoot.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Those 175 units, was that broken out into which sector, like senior housing or?
We did that.
It's coming?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I can pull it up on the
It's
computer.
okay. Nope, go ahead,
If
it's
you are
coming.
really interested, it's,
I am kind of interested in
I'd be
that.
happy to pull that up for you. Let's circle back to
Okay,
that.
that's
Yeah.
fine, thank you.
But ultimately, we break it down, not specific to senior housing, we break it down as far as like, okay, single family, multifamily,
Good.
based on demand projections and trends that we see within. Now, this is different than a target market analysis that's gonna be like, here's your maximum potential from everywhere. We're saying, hey, this is more of a realistic demand goal based on production and supply and capacity of the current, not targeting, we're targeting this for municipalities to use, not for developers to use for
Correct.
their market specific demands. Does that make sense?
Yes.
How does this number compare to some similar cities around Michigan that are our size? I mean, that seems pretty darn low for 2030.
Yeah, we haven't done all the calculations for all of the neighboring, you know, demand is not something that everybody is doing in this particular calculation.
Okay.
So I don't have all the reference points to answer that for you.
You say it's low, but
I mean, that's how
Some
many,
people think it's high, that's a lot.
175 homes? Or
Or
dwellings,
units,
or
yeah.
units?
Yep,
it seems low, but, I mean, we'd
In
have to
5
build
years?
40
In
a
5
year or
years,
something
that's-
to catch up, and
Or a
that's
big
not
apartment
happening.
complex.
Huh?
Yeah.
A couple big apartment complex would probably do it.
I mean, they've built all
Yeah,
of,
but those take years to do,
they've probably
too.
built
I mean,
all of 175 units by the Speedway off of Gull Road.
Yeah.
I understand, but it's a different community.
That's, I think that's still
That's still
Comstock.
Comstock, yes.
Right
We
there by the
approved
traffic circle,
that
by the-
project.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct.
that's all of 175 units
so
right
this is
there.
including moving forward, we have taken into consideration the building permit
Okay.
that have already been pulled.
Gotcha.
So, this is moving forward, yeah. So this is not, you know, perfect, right? It's giving us information to guide and help us make better policy decisions. And, you know, one of the things on the next slide is looking at the cost of development. And I think what I like about this particular information is it breaks down the cost percentage for developers based on different components, all which overlap this body of jurisdiction. So land for development is 10 to 25%, construction 60 to 75%, so that's the majority of it, but then design 3 to 10, permitting, professional fees, all another 2 to 20%, and then financing 10 to 20%. And ultimately what that means is that the land use and how we kind of put rules or regulation on the land dictates the expense of the development to a great degree. So like land, what increases the cost of land? Well, that would be, you know, the density standard, the minimum lot width, your minimum setbacks, your minimum green space. Construction, what that involves use restrictions, minimum floor area, parking requirements, building codes, utility connection fees, all of those will impact construction costs. Design, it looks at form-based standards, material requirements, energy efficiency requirements, permitting and professional fees, that's land use, whether it's a PUD, planning commission review, zoning board of appeals, and then financing comes down to whether there's appraisals and comps may be available locally or local revenue bonds, housing trust funds, what is available within the community or how can they tap in, or even, is the community used to working with different tax increment financing tools and models to help alleviate some of the costs, right? And the cost is a lot of times is what's driving up the price because construction right now is so high. And you'll see in the next slide just an example of a new single-family house is coming in at around $300,000. In our estimates, we usually see new construction around $300,000 to $500,000 per unit for single-family. And so, that means this, I think, the calculations on this Zillow home. If they have a 30-year mortgage at 6.8% interest, their principal and interest would be around $1,600. So someone would need to be making, at least $76,000 a year for that particular one. Okay, and then I'm going to keep going here through these reviews. So ultimately what we see is that wages are just failing to keep up with home prices. So this is the FA's housing price index, and essentially the cost, which we're all experiencing, right? Cost of goods and services are drastically increasing, and wages just aren't keeping pace. And all that means is just there's a wider gap. So things feel like they're getting more expensive because they are, based on what people are getting paid. And so that represents and comes up in the way that just paying to repair your home or even paying to find a new home, right? So everyone's a little pinched, and that, not all these things we can solve. So let's go to the next slide.
Your calculation.
Yeah.
It doesn't take into consideration the taxes and insurance, does it? From what you said, it was just principal and interest, and,
Yeah, it was just principal and
and
interest.
if that's all it is, you're using your calculation to, on that, to buy a house when it's actually a higher
Yeah,
point.
so if I did
See,
miss,
that
so
person
property
was
taxes and
80,000.
insurance would be another 270, so it actually would be $1,887,
Yeah, okay.
for that home, you're correct, yep. And then, if you're making, and then just to, drive that, if you're making, yeah, so it's tight as far as,
Well,
who can
my only
afford that
point was that,
1,800?
my only point was that you based what the total income should be on the lower number, and it's really a higher number that they need to make, isn't it?
So they need to be able to afford the 1,887, and we can just do that real quick. So the calculation is 30% of your income should go towards housing. So if you're making $76,000 a year, you can afford $1,008. That's the maximum is 30% at $1,887.
But then you also gotta look to
Yeah.
income and everything else they have too, like
Right,
cars,
this is just bare
credit
bones,
cards,
right?
and all that stuff.
This is just an example piece to kind of give you an idea. There's a
And
lot
you'd
of
be
other,
surprised. And it can't go over 40%, basically right there. They're not
So-
touching anything over 36, 37%.
yeah,
right
so
now.
30% is are you talking about of the income?
Yes.
Yeah, Yep. So at least, yeah, so a person making 76, if they have no other, debts or other things going on, then they could potentially afford paying $1,887 a month, potentially, right? But that's probably tight for most people because they have medical bills or other debts or student loans. But this is, just looking at a scenario. Majority of your cost burden population are making 30,000 or below. So this is not, this wouldn't solve, this single family home at $300,000 is not solving the cost burden issue for those making less than 30,000.
But I don't think most of
It's
them
solving
would
a
go for
supply and
bedrooms
demand overall, but yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't think four of them would go for 4 bedrooms and 3 baths either with that kind of a wage. I mean, it's all relative
Yes.
to wages, like you said.
It's all relative, and then and it depends on household size and all that stuff, but, so when we turn over the page, we can look at just an example of what people are making, right? So you have a nurse who's making 80,000, they can approximately afford, housing monthly costs of around 2,000. And your manufacturing worker makes around 68,000, they can, roughly afford 1,700. Construction worker at 40,000 a year, that's around 1,000. So just kind of, giving you an idea of, our workforce and the struggles that they're finding when trying to be housed. So I'm gonna keep going here so that we don't get too much time to go through our strategies, but this next section is some of the housing basics and just looking at trends. So,
Sorry,
bless
thank you.
you.
Sorry.
You're okay. So overall, the median monthly owner cost is lower for Comstock Township than it is for Kalamazoo or Michigan as a whole. The median home value is also just slightly lower as well in Comstock. There is also slightly newer housing in Comstock as well compared to the county and definitely compared to the city. And then when we're going to the next slide, so home values in Comstock Township are just slightly lower than Michigan values overall. So we're comparing it to Michigan, Kalamazoo, and Comstock. Just a little bit lower, nothing too extreme. And then the next slide looks at the pace of building. Ultimately, we're not building. We got behind during our 2008 slump, and we lost a lot of contractors, things changed, and we just haven't been building the same way. And now costs are increasing, and so there's still a lot of demand. We're also seeing a shift in household size, which there's more data on in a little bit, but essentially households are a little smaller, so our family units and our individuals looking for a unit is a smaller makeup on average for your community. It's about 2.5. So homeownership remains high in the late ages, and we also see that seniors, most of them, own their homes with no mortgage, meaning they've paid it off and they're, might be considering living in place, as many are nowadays. And your renter and homeownership rates have not changed over a 5-year period. It's been pretty consistent. So you have around 32% that are renters, and the remaining 68% are owners. But we see a larger percentage of the renters experiencing cost burden. So we have around, based on our calculations, there's, we've given some numbers to renters and owners that are experiencing this overburden, meaning they're paying more than 30% than their gross take-home pay to be housed, and renters are experiencing that to a greater degree. So keep moving along into our survey. We have most of the respondents, so we have a total of 135 responses. And the results that you see here, we weighted by population demographics for better representation of renter and owner. So essentially, we, did our best to accommodate the demographics and make sure that we were matching the demographics of the community, even if we didn't get the perfect demographic makeup in those who responded. But those that chose to respond have been here in this community for 10 or more years. Most work from home or have a short commute, so 28% said they work from home, and then 22% said they had 10 minutes or less, and then another 26% said 11 to 20 minutes. So most have a 20-minute or zero commute.
Kalamazoo is a geographic anomaly, everything is 20 minutes.
That is a benefit.
Everything in Detroit
I
is
think
an hour.
it's, yes. I think it's the population size too, there's just not as much traffic.
Yeah.
I don't know. We all enjoy that aspect.
That's for anyone that knows the movie that was from.
Family sizes matches the national average. There's not a huge difference when we looked at owners and renters, around 2.5 people per household. Most of our renters are middle-aged, so you don't have, like the city will see a lot of younger renters, young professionals, but that is not the makeup of those. In Comstock, most people identified that income diversity in housing stock was important, either somewhat important or very important when they responded to the survey. And then we also, in the survey, asked, who are you looking to move? And those aged 55 to 74 were more likely to move in the next 5 years. So that could create a bottleneck if there's a lack of senior housing open. But, that age group is going to be looking for certain housing types. Typically with less maintenance and smaller in size than what they have now. And then when we asked this same survey population, why would you intend to move? Choose all that apply. So more affordable was the number 1, and downsize was the number 2, and then number 3 was more rural. The 4th highest was other, which was a combination of things like lower taxes, better schools, less maintenance, and warmer climate. We're not gonna be able to change some of those things here. So, and then the greatest challenges to moving to Comstock was finding what they wanted, including the price. So we asked, among the newer residents, so those that had lived here less than 10 years, they got their own question that said, what are or were your greatest challenges when looking to find housing in Comstock Township? And most just said it was hard to find housing that offers what they were looking for, but mostly hard to find housing within the right price range, or their options were just off the market too quickly. And then we also asked among the newer residents who have lived here 10 years or less, what are or were you looking for in housing that you could not find? So basically expanding, on that last question, you said you couldn't find what you were looking for. Well, what were you looking for? Affordability was at the top, and then type of housing, condos, senior options, etc. And then specific house size, bedrooms, bathrooms, etc. Were all towards the top. And then we asked, is it important for our community to build more housing types? So in parentheses, that included duplex, townhome, cottage court, apartments. And 68% wanted to see more duplexes, townhomes, cottage courts, and apartments. So that is 68% said, I agree or strongly agree. About 13% said neither, and about 9% disagreed, and about 10% strongly disagreed. All right. I'm breezing through these, so we have enough time to talk about the strategies, but two more. We asked, which of the following housing options do you think the community needs to incorporate more of? And ultimately, this just told us that, again, more housing diversity is desired. Single family homes is still something that's desirable, but cottage courts became a close second, and accessory dwelling units following that. So, let's see. But 76% of the total votes went to other housing types beyond single family. So smaller families are looking for cottage courts, maybe, smaller homes, medium apartments, or accessory dwelling units. And our last data slide for today is what changes or improvements would you like to see in your township to enhance the quality of life and foster a stronger community? And so, responses were, of course, all over the place, but beautification, zoning, downtown investment, homelessness were the top frequent improvements requested. So improving appearances, people were speaking to code enforcement for things like parking on the front lawns, trailers on grass, uncut lawns, junk cars and driveways, etc. We have mindful zoning. One individual was like, we want to build a home with a separate apartment for our parents, but currently laws don't allow that. Safer places to walk, ride bikes, more pedestrian friendly, etc. Another, person was talking about crime. And another individual, looking for assistance with renovating existing housing with emphasis on older or more historical homes, looking for lower housing prices. Another individual, let's help clean up the rundown properties. The investment in downtown and mindful zoning were towards the top. We have a few more comments here that talk about multi-use zoning for a mix of homes, stores, recreational, suitable for non-car transportation. And then then there was a comment about the Morrow Dam. Needs to be fixed. So, we will include all the comments in the appendix so you can go through them. People have, a lot to say, and they're very passionate about, the community they live and love. So, we are happy to look at that information in greater detail as needed. I know that was a lot, but so I'm going to give you just a minute to kind of sit with that information before we move on to talk about some of the strategies. And I brought sugar, just in case you need to pick me up. So I'll now open these just to I know these, conversations aren't easy. We can't solve all the problems, right? We hear, this was a housing survey, and we heard about schools, we heard about things that are kind of outside of the control or the capacity of this particular plan.
So do you have metrics or data on why people move to certain areas? Like what is important to them, not necessarily because of this study, but do you have that kind of data? Like, do people move to communities because the school system is the best? The shopping is the best, they have good restaurants, do you have that kind of data?
We have, that is, I think what you're looking at or trying to get at is like trends. So there are specific trends data that is tied to, okay, this demographic likes to spend money in these ways, and they typically would like to live in, these types of homes. And that is going to be more aligned with like a target market analysis that dives into those specifics, right? So your younger, singles and kind of newer to the job force, they're gonna be looking for, you know,
Chicago.
smaller units, right? And they might wanna live downtown, right? That
Yeah.
might not be your demographic. Your
Correct.
demographic might be this, 55 to 74. You had kind of a middle-aged for your renters, around 40. So you have like middle-aged, is kind of your median. And so, I mean, we could definitely look into some of those trends. I don't have them memorized offhand for each demographic group, but that data,
I mean, those
does
are pretty
exist.
important figures that you would want if you're on a planning commission or helping develop a long-term plan.
Yeah, so the way we kind of made some of those conclusions as far as, okay, what are the national trends overall?
Yeah.
And overall, people are looking for smaller unit size, something that is more affordable. They are looking for things that don't require as much maintenance. So you might see like townhomes and condos.
If you're trying to target maybe mid-20s to mid-30-year-old people, I mean, if you're trying to target those people with families,
Right.
I mean, you're going to want to focus on schools, parks.
Yes.
I mean, those kind of things. I mean, that's super important data that we should have as a planning commission.
And
What are other,
family-friendly
yeah, what are other
activities
communities
nearby,
doing
right?
to have
Like-
this demographic come into their communities?
Yeah, so this plan focuses on, I'm not gonna get into the specifics of
Yeah.
like, schools and.
I mean, school is a big player. We can, I mean, we're not mentioning it enough, but,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all of the age where we have had children and you have had friends and they move to certain communities because of the school. I mean, when you're in Chicago and you're younger, you live in the city. When you get older, you go to Lincoln Square because the schools are the best that the city of Chicago has to offer.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is just that the family sizes are much smaller. So essentially what we're seeing is that patterns are creating that we're gonna have access of these like larger housing units with, 4 or 5 bedrooms because family sizes are at 2.5, meaning most people are having 1 to 2 children or they're choosing not to have children.
Correct.
And that's the trend that we're seeing nationally, also we're seeing that locally. And so when you talk about that in general, we know that that means a smaller unit size. And we know that that means that they're looking for units that don't have as many bedrooms, that might not have as much maintenance. People are looking for walkability and
Yes.
connection to amenities.
I mean, younger people don't want to mow their lawns or do
schools-
the landscaping like my generation.
Yeah, and so schools did come up, but it just wasn't the priority
Yeah.
that came up in this survey.
What is
So,
the age demographic of Comstock?
She said older, like 54.
so your median is, median renter is 42 and your
Which is amazing.
owner is 53.
So surprising.
Okay.
But you didn't have I mean, how many people took the survey? 170?
35.
35.
I know I took it.
I took it.
Yep, and so
think I
then the
did too.
survey is weighted.
So
And it was the weighted
5% of it is right here.
We just skewed all the data, okay? The metrics are out the door.
There is a demographic I found for a grant that I was applying for. The average age of Comstock is around 44, so mid-40s.
Yeah.
So
And I
That's
think
a-
people are having children later now.
Yes.
So like you're still thinking about like at 44, you're still thinking about
a 10-year-old.
High school.
a younger
Yeah.
family, like who's
Yeah.
still in the school system.
Yes.
Yeah, because most people held off to have kids until it becomes necessary if they're gonna do it.
I'll be 41 next week and I have a 5-year-old. So
Okay.
like to put into perspective, I am the average.
Is that what caused the gray hair?
41, there you go.
Is that what caused the gray
I
hair?
think my job caused the gray hair. If you look at my hair color when I took this job versus it now. So, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and so ultimately what we're looking to do when we talk about our goals and objectives is we look at, okay, how do we ease some of these pinching points and, where is it appropriate to add supply, where is it not appropriate to add supply, what is, currently allowed within the ordinance to build, and what isn't. And that's where we're gonna allow that expansion of price and opportunity and just overall options, right? How do we add more options? Because that's my takeaway from, the survey and the data, is we have smaller families, and those families are looking for more options. And right now, we actually have, in our county plan, it shows that we have an oversupply of single-family homes based on, what the demand and how it's shifting.
I don't know if that's true though, Jim, you could probably elaborate based on what you do, but I feel like single-family homes hit the market and come off the market pretty quick.
Very quick, very quick.
Yeah.
You're seeing a 15, 30-day supply of homes there under contract, price right condition, stuff like that.
Yeah, so single family is still the top most desirable unit desired, but as it pertains to, how do I say this? It's like the shift in demand, like moving forward, looks very different, and that is a larger percentage is looking for these alternative housing types. So we have a lot of, and also there's a bit of this play where there's not other options out there. And so we don't know what people would choose because those options don't exist. So people need housing, there's a shortage of housing, so people are going to go for what is available. So, you're gonna see that demand no matter what because we're in a housing crisis. So they're gonna gobble up whatever stock is available. People are overpaying because they need to get something that's safe and within, a community that they wanna live in. They're taking whatever they can get. That doesn't mean that that is their, first priority or their first option. It's more of like, this is what we have, this is what we're creating, and so this is
So
what
does the study say that we should direct our ordinances towards multi-dwellings or make it more?
I do think you're
Well, it
seeing
said
more,
the survey said we need to do condos and duplexes.
but I think you are seeing more of a desire for multi-generational, housing options, and ChatGPT agrees.
What do you
by the
mean
way.
by multi-generational?
I'll give you an example, my
like-
grandmother lives with me.
Yeah.
So
My mom.
having a place for either your parents or grandparents or whatever, or parents having a place for their
Or your adult
adult-age
children.
children.
Like we did with the couple that wanted to put their grandparents
Correct,
In the garage.
yeah.
in the garage.
So that would be an accessory dwelling unit,
Yeah.
right? And that came up quite a bit. Accessory dwelling units can look like a lot of different things, and it's one of my first recommendations for a community like Comstock.
Yeah.
Because it can be applied
It can
and
solve a lot of
it solves a lot of
things.
problems. It should be applied to all of your zoning districts.
I think we
Because
are
ultimately,
addressing
it's hidden. It's not like a large,
Accessory
complex pops
units
up.
and accessory dwelling are different.
So accessory dwelling units can be the basement of an existing home. It can be on top of the garage. It could be a small cottage in the backyard. It could be an addition to the side of the house. Essentially, it's an addition to the primary dwelling unit, and it can look like whatever it needs to accommodate the space and the existing home. Generally, we'll see older parents in that space, but sometimes it's their, their 20-something kid that wants
I think we're
extra
seeing a lot
space.
of that
Yeah.
lately.
Well, we just
That is very
approved
common.
one for an elderly couple
Yeah.
that wanted to move into their garage or something like
I will
that.
say, a lot of people come to me and ask about accessory dwelling units, but a big part is that our ordinance requires them to come for planning commission approval and pay a fee, and so a lot of them say.
Oh, that
"Never
stops
mind."
it,
Correct.
the train of thought,
I've had,
that
10
stops
people
it
come-
right there.
10 people come and ask about it, only one person has come in front of you all.
That's good to know.
Yes,
That's great information.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What are they asking for?
they're asking about ADUs, accessory dwelling units, but there's a fee to come in front of you all, and that stops them from wanting to come. So I've had 2 people approach me about it, and only one has come thus far.
So it's the
The
fee,
question is, how do you
600.
remove barriers?
How much?
Yeah,
$600.
Oh, that's excessive.
yeah,
That-
I mean,
that-
yeah, that's,
I can understand.
yeah, that would,
There has to
Put the
be an
com-
administrative fee, but
Everything.
600 is excessive.
on the wage demographics here, that is definitely, that's a no.
well, is
Well-
there a way to look at, depending on what somebody is trying to do? Because in some cases, if you're not putting in, let's just say hypothetically, on top of a garage, and you're not necessarily putting in plumbing. Do we care that they're drywalling in and, you know what I mean, like
So attached does not require approval from you all, but a lot of them are.
unattached?
Detached.
Okay.
Which will require their own kitchen.
Understood.
Yeah, yeah, it's a whole separate
Sure,
unit.
yep, makes sense, okay.
It's a dwelling unit, yeah, it has to have the required.
Which
yeah.
I don't see any
So
way
this is
around
something
it.
that could be maybe changed to administrative review.
Correct.
So that is something we talk about in here, so we have, updating to allow, so making sure how it's allowed and then removing the barriers. So one of the measures is administrative review is would kind of streamline that process. Like, you are allowed to do this. Come to our zoning administrator for
Would that be a
approval.
fee still?
Do
for
we
you
need to
I mean, you
make
could have
an
a
I mean, you
ordinance?
have a lower fee.
It's like $250 to come down.
To come to you versus
Casey,
having to come
do
to
we
us?
need to make an ordinance?
Yeah, we could
to
do an
that?
ordinance, you bet we could.
We would have to change it. We have one existing, we would have to change the existing one.
Okay.
Like chickens and accessory structures and.
All of
That would only
the,
take
Yeah,
6
that's-
months.
y'all, these 3:30 meetings.
How, we allow ADUs as a permitted, as a special use in quite a few districts now, right?
Yes, they're allowed in almost every district except for that.
But as a special use, it has to come before us. So if we did it as an allowed use or as under administrative review, something so that it doesn't,
Correct, sorry.
Right, you want, yep.
I'm not,
And so I see your next point is also duplexes. And that's
I mean,
and duplexes are
I
also
wouldn't be
special use
comfortable
for us.
with
And so a
making
lot of people want to come to
ADUs like in an
duplexes,
R1
but
A
fee
district,
stops them from
allowing
So
an
duplex would be
ADU.
different from an accessory
Without
dwelling
some
unit,
sort of
as it would
plan
be like
review.
creating
Yeah, but
We have
if we,
small
an
ones.
additional
Cutting a house
wrote
in
the
half or
ordinance
something, is
accordingly.
that what you're referring to?
They
Set
might, you could
standards,
still,
you
you
have to do
set
that.
could turn,
I guess,
It'd make
if
it
you,
more
if you feel
comfortable. Say so
comfortable
well.
enough, being comprehensive enough, that,
Can I have Kyle talk? Because I've been wanting to know what he's thinking over there, and he hasn't said boo.
because he's smirking?
No, I know he's been thinking, because I've been watching him thinking.
So ADUs, well, first off, because Comstock is a certified under the redevelopment ready communities, and that was prior to when they shifted to the 2.0 model, or certified or essential. Under their new program for the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, RRC, Redevelopment Ready Corporation, they have now provisions where you have to increase housing as a permitted use. So ADUs, duplexes, threeplexes, fourplexes, all as permitted, not special land use. So I don't know how, seeing that impacts our current standing as a certified community, because I know we have to recertify or re-go. So that may be a hiccup when we go that route. So to Emily's point on there, making them more permitted by right with admin review would remove a significant amount of hurdles. You know, if there's concern on converting every detached garage in some dense neighborhood to a unit, we've got another community, there's members who do not want that. They don't want to look at their backyard and see another unit. You could look at doing additional conditions on it as well, so it'd still be permitted by right, but you have to have supplemental conditions that you have to meet as well, such as windows have to be a certain size of the building, you gotta be so far away. So instead of being a land use, we can still move forward with it, remove those barriers, but you have 5 or 6 design guidelines you have to meet in order to get
Right.
approved by administration.
So it's not an eyesore.
Well, yes, but it also protects the other neighbors.
Well,
too
you
from
want
having
standards, you want a set of standards.
yeah, exactly the example he gave, you know, you go into a dense neighborhood where people have attached garages and somebody wants to convert their garage into an elderly apartment and stuff. And,
well, if it's attached, or you said detached, or attached?
well, attached or detached.
Because if
I
it's
mean,
attached, they don't have to come through us. They can convert their garage without having to come here anyway.
Not into an ADU, they can't.
Correct, attached to does not require special land use approval.
Into an accessory dwelling
They
unit?
still have to get building permits and everything
Correct, yeah.
else, but they don't have to get approval to change the purpose of that attached
Are there any
fixture.
other standards or minimum lot size or
Yes,
anything.
so there still is an
If
ordinance.
it already exists, it's already been approved.
Okay.
Yeah, but
footprint
there still
on
is an
their
ordinance,
line.
with requirements, and then we hand it off to Kala, who handles the,
Yeah, CABA does make sure that they
It still has
build
to
it
be-
accordingly.
Right.
it still has to be, it's a unit, a dwelling unit itself.
Right, okay.
I
So
think,
there's also provision we'll have that indicate you have to be metered to the existing home. You can't have a separate meter to a lot of companies.
It's a fire thing.
Yep, so water and sewer have to be metered into that. Some communities have it where if you are going to have a detached accessory dwelling unit, you then have to either live in the ADU as a property owner or in the main house. You can't have two separate units.
Rental units, right.
Yeah, so that's a provision I know Bedford's done, Marcellus has done, we've worked with them on.
And that's part
So you basically have
of
to
the
live
zoning
on
ordinance then?
property.
So you can permit it by right with conditions, but one condition being that you have to live in either the primary residence or the
that's-
ADU.
Otherwise, it's rental
I like that one. I mean, I think that's a
Yes.
reasonable, because that allows it to be used for what you're trying to accomplish, which is that multi-generational ability versus, I'm just trying to turn this into a dual income property.
It still then focuses on having the owner present.
Right.
If the owner's present, it's gonna naturally look better.
And you can
Correct.
enforce maintenance without trying to track down an out-of-state owner.
Yes.
Right.
So those are some of the provisions. We've also looked at when it's a second floor, where a staircase can be, that way your main entrance isn't right inside the backyard, you shift it more
Sure.
so the primary residence where it is located has their backyard, the entrance. So try to help give some protection to the neighbors as well, so,
Parking.
yeah.
I like the idea of building in some of those, like, if you meet X conditions, it's approved by, you know what I mean? Like, it's administrative review, because I think that property owners should have the ability to, as long as they're, safe and all of the things and not infringing on other people's property rights, like, I think you should be able to have some flexibility with your property. It's the same logic that we're applying about accessory units
And
in the
that's
sense
another
of.
thing, if you have an accessory building, like we just, let's say, I decided to build an accessory building, and then my kids wanted to move back with me, but I didn't want them in the main house. Could I use that accessory building? Would that fall into it?
Yeah, it would
But it would
become,
have to then come before us, right?
Correct.
unless we change.
Right now, you would have to come
If
before
it's
us.
attached, correct.
Yes.
It's,
But-
yeah, detached.
Yep.
But if we were to make adjustments, potentially, it wouldn't have to,
If they met the
if it
criteria
met
that
X,
we
Y, Z.
set.
Correct.
Don't worry, my kids are never going back.
Never's an awful long time.
They won't.
Never say never.
Okay, so it sounds like we're all in favor of accessory dwelling units and removing some of the barriers to make sure that landowners have the right to add an accessory dwelling unit, right?
Yeah,
Making sure it's still safe and has standards of, livability.
The stipulations, you would enforce those or make sure that they were done?
Correct.
If we gave you that authority?
So there's an ordinance, like chicken ordinance. When they pull permit for chicken ordinance, I make sure they hit the boxes and I approve it. So
Okay.
same thing.
Then who does our,
CABA,
Yes.
CABA goes out and
Correct.
inspects it
So they-
before?
they give them the
allow it?
green sticker
Yes.
Okay.
with a date on it.
Can we think about another way to do this other than just administratively? I'd like to have some kind of oversight based on past history of, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, vindictiveness or who you are in the township. I can see a potential happening with that. So I think that I am not for just administrative oversight with this.
There would have to be an administrative appeal if someone felt they weren't treated fairly.
Nothing bad against you, Casey.
Of course not.
I'm just saying that,
I think a comprehensive report to the planning commission might be in
I'm just
order,
thinking
too.
down the road for,
I mean,
Yeah.
you could put together a report of all the people that came in right, in what they were doing, and then we
And reason for, maybe it's just if something is denied, like the reason for denial comes through.
Well, if it was, there's always wiggle room. If they're
Right.
being denied, it'll be for a reason, like they're over there, not their limit of
Sure.
structures, they're not meeting setbacks. There's always a reason as to why.
Right, right. I mean, legally, you have to make sure that there's a
Correct.
reason.
Correct. Yeah, but yeah, so we can cross that bridge, Sandy, if we want to.
So I think we need to put that on the agenda then, right?
It's another workshop, yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it right now? All right. I love it. And we have a long list, but
That seems like a pretty important one.
It's gonna need to go into
Okay.
our work group.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, one of the questions I was gonna ask is like, which ones do we wanna do now, and which ones do we wanna do later? Some of these are gonna be easier and harder than others, but I agree, this one is pretty easy, and can be added pretty quickly and removed. And there were a handful of comments that were like, hey, I would like to have, a multi-generational household, but it's currently not allowed. So, I think this will be a really,
My kids are gonna need to
good
take
one
care of me when I can't
to
walk.
do first, so. Okay, so,
I need a run.
My parents and my in-laws are fighting over our apartment that my grandmother lives in, who gets it next, and we bought that way.
and so we kind of jumped right into the strategies, but, there can be definitely some additional wordsmithing, but this particular strategy I've placed under a larger goal that says a township where housing unit production and preservation result in a supply of ownership and rental options that are safe, healthy, and affordable to people of all income levels and demographics. Very broad, very wide, but ultimately saying, okay, we're gonna produce and make sure that we're supporting people in and through the housing continuum at different life stages. So there's a few different ways we can say this, but this is where we're talking about primarily where we're adding the objectives and the strategies around adding housing diversity, housing and different types of housing, and expanding allowable uses within specific districts. So the next one is actually talking about duplexes. So duplexes obviously are different than ADUs. It still is 2 units on one parcel, but then it would be a split of the electrical and address. So it'd be more official as far as the separation of, units. It still could be, within an existing unit. So many times, an example would be, someone making their basement a completely separate unit. It's not just an ADU, it is a completely separate unit and it's metered separately, but they made the renovations and they made that happen, and now that's supplemental income. You can see this in some of the, more senior situations. Some of them say they have live-in care in the basement, it's a separate unit. Or, it's a family member, but they want there to have that separation and more officialness for generating revenue and income and paying the mortgage. So there are some financial benefits to those who are middle or low income in supplemental income for this additional unit, and it can be done in many ways. And also it's acknowledging that a duplex doesn't have to look like a duplex. A duplex could actually just look like a single family home and have 2 units and you wouldn't even know.
Just 2 entrances.
It's just, there's 2 entrances.
Which is what they do downtown with the old houses
Yeah.
for college
It
kids.
looks like one house.
Yeah.
Right, and so there is a way to kind of say, it looks like a single family home, it behaves like a single family home, it sits maybe next to other single family homes, but it actually has 2 doors and 2 cars and 2 households that live there. But, it's kind of subtle. And so this is, this next strategy would basically be saying, okay, let's open some of our, primarily only single family to allow duplexes by right and allow, the legal conversion of single family to duplexes. And essentially, provide design standards that would blend well with single-family homes. So ensuring that that neighborhood feel is still maintained if someone's gonna be, adding a new unit. But in some of your existing neighborhoods, this would only apply with someone saying, hey, I want to meter my basement separately. But it would be allowed, and it would, so that is it's a little different than the accessory dwelling unit, but it is something that provides different opportunities and that co-housing, multi-generational opportunities. It's just taking it to the next level. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Yeah,
The
go
only
ahead.
thing I think about the converting a single family into a duplex is dependent on lot size, because I think we have some fairly densely populated, dense lot areas, right? Is like, do you then, what does that do from a vehicle traffic, and is there, like, are you then creating a problem where there's vehicles, more need for street parking or things like that? Like, how do you sort
lot,
through
right?
that,
Yeah.
right? Because not every lot is created equal in every zone. So it's not like you could say, okay, well, we can do it in this zone, but not in this zone, because
Right.
some of the houses in that zone have acre plus, long driveway, no big deal. Some might have,
Quarter acre.
right, no driveway, enough for a
60
single
foot.
car type
Yeah.
of
60
deal.
foot.
And then how wide is the road?
Right.
Parking allowed on the
Right,
street?
so like, what does that spillage look like into then the public space, I guess would be my,
And realistically, it isn't going from one car to two cars, it's going from 2 cars to 4 cars.
potentially, yeah.
It could.
Or more, depending on the size of the duplex and
Absolutely.
whatever, so.
Teenage children, you have more cars.
Kind of
Go for it.
chime in on that?
Yep.
Yes.
So,
I don't
Peter,
wanna-
on that, I think our first concern that we hear when I work with other communities on the same thing is, it is a traffic aspect, right? But I want to point out that the traffic concern would come if all of those homes at one time converted to duplexes. This would be kind of a slow burn, so yeah, in 5 to 10 years, there may be concerns with that.
Sure,
But
That's if
I think-
everyone wanted to do it, but not
Right.
everyone's gonna want to do it.
right.
Oh, no, of
So
course not.
there is a
I'm not-
legitimate concern.
I'm not saying like I'm opposed, I'm just like troubleshooting in my head, like, why would we not want this? And that's the only thing that can really come up to me that would be, and so I don't know if there's, I'm sure somewhere, there's blueprints of things communities have done to sort of try to proactively solve for that, because to your point, we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where 5 to 10 years from now we have a roads problem that we have to find money to solve for, because the reality is, I don't know, unknown about, economic state in 5 to 10 years. It's not like you can just tap a millage onto the community and be good with it. Like, it's not necessarily gonna work, especially if you're trying to grow the community. Anyway, just something to think
No,
about.
thank you. I appreciate that, but I did want to just opinion that even though it is a very legitimate concern, and I'm not discrediting that, I just would like to help indicate that we're looking at a 5, 10, 15-year burn over that, where I think a lot of residents or community members who hear that we want to do something to this nature, that's their big concern. When you do traffic, well,
Do we,
traffic's not there tomorrow. It's just like when new neighborhoods are built, it's a incremental item, and the roads are designed to carry so many, carrying capacity as
Sure.
well, so.
I don't worry so much about traffic on the road as much as I worry about the parking side of it, but, so, do we, I should know this, but I don't. Are there areas that we just don't allow it at all, or is it like, yeah,
Currently, they are a special land use in all the residential areas.
okay, so it is special, it is something that somebody can still come
Correct.
before us and do, okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. If we were to try to remove some of that restriction by making it, here it says by right, I'm not sure, it could be restricted by lot size, couldn't it, or by open space available, or?
Well, our ADUs require a lot size of 1.5 acres, so you could do the same thing with duplexes.
Oh, okay, all right, that helps, okay.
Does that mean I can get you a map of all the
That might be excessive too, but like I say, we have some tiny lots. And I can't see putting in a back door and saying it's a duplex. That would not work in some of our neighborhoods. Other areas, it certainly could
Yeah, it
work.
doesn't
And
make
again,
sense.
it's kind of an infill situation like you were describing. It's not suddenly going to become a neighborhood of duplexes.
Right.
Yeah, not everyone
Okay.
wants, it's gonna be whoever wants to, whoever
Sure.
has the financial means to, and so, and it's gonna be, and
Well, the
most
one
people don't know
point
it's
five
even
is-
allowed, so the time that it like kind of trickles through.
It kind of solves it.
Both of these, to me, are reasonable and appropriate ways of approaching creating diversity and opportunity for housing. I like both of those approaches. If we can, make it more affordable and administratively possible, I'd certainly be in favor of that.
And so I'm not advocating one or the other, but it is a requirement of the RRC to increase housing density as a by right in there. And they have a list of like 6 or 8 topics we have to hit, and they've hit 2 or 3 of them. So if single-family, duplex, triplex, quadplex.
So those all qualify.
Mhm. But they have to be by right.
What's by right?
It means that
You
you don't.
have to
they don't
do it.
It's not
come in
special
before you
land
approve.
use.
It's just allowed,
Yeah.
Okay,
it's not
Just like a
special.
single-family home. They can submit an application permit to Casey, she reviews it.
and move on.
Yep.
But it can be allowed with conditions. And that's, if we do a good enough job, then that's
That's right.
okay.
If it's very efficient, right? And it looks good,
Yeah.
meets,
Okay. So I'm not hearing any large, let's move on to the next strategy under this draft goal. This potential strategy would be remove zoning barriers for housing projects in designated areas such as but not limited to reviewing the minimum requirements in zoning for parking setbacks, single-family lot size, and building square footage required.
I think we've already done that.
We did that for one of our zoning districts this February.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's for one district. Do we want to consider its applicability in other districts?
No.
That was still there, but
not with those
All
setbacks.
right.
Not under those same standards, at
Okay,
least,
well,
to be
different
clear.
standards, maybe,
Yeah.
To be clear, not those
For
ones.
me,
No, but to that, Amber, there are ways that we could increase the building envelope to allow for someone to do an addition on their home.
Yeah.
Even if it is just removing like a 5 foot from the rear yard, reducing that down 5 feet, the front yard 5 feet. So incrementally, making it a little smaller, which would make our building envelope larger to allow for these more, I don't call them tiny lots, but less than 10,000 square feet to have a larger area that they can build on. So that would remove some barriers as well. Not saying get rid of the, the 40-foot setback in the rear, could even down to 10.
Right,
or
right.
25 or 30
Sure.
increment.
Yeah, and this can apply to, vacant lots. So if you're doing new construction, what are, in the neighborhood, what is the setbacks? What is the building square footage, footprint required? That's going to impact, that comes back to the cost for the developer from that one slide, is how are they able to kind of get units on that land. That price of land stays the same no matter how many units they have on there. So that increases the price, but there's economies of scale that can impact the cost and the overall end sale price.
Right, potentially making it more affordable because you
Yeah.
get more out of your piece of
Yeah.
land.
And that's just, slide 9 that we spoke to that. So that's why this is in here, is because, how do we, if someone wants to expand their footprint, what's allowed, but also, when building new, or if something was demoed and rebuilt, like what is allowed? And can they get the right number of units on that parcel to charge a more affordable price? So as when we get more units on a parcel of land, you get more efficiencies, same with like stacking, right? stacking of units allows you to be able to get efficiencies in plumbing or, mostly plumbing is the most expensive, but, so electrical, et cetera. So thinking about how do we give the either the homeowner or the developer flexibility to modify and create more efficiencies of the existing space. We don't, and you kind of have, Comstock has the land they have, so how do we use it more efficiently and effectively in order to continue to meet the needs of the growing community? And part of that is, okay, let's look at these setbacks and the, removing barriers to these minimum requirements. Parking setbacks are probably only for one really district, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
The building square footage is going to be, to an extent, limited by our building code as well. So we have to have so many square feet for bedrooms, living facilities, bathroom facilities as well. So we worked with some building inspectors who have an opinion that really anything less than 500 square feet is running into issues with code compliance from the residential building code. So
what is the minimum right now?
for us,
House size?
yes.
960.
Yeah, but what we just do for lots.
601 of the refrigerator is.
Which is the smallest in the state.
Yep.
Okay, 601 zone.
RMC.
Correct.
Okay. So then the question would be, does that 600 minimum fit in other zones?
I will say people are excited to hear that when I tell them that these small, I say 960, like 960, that's still a lot per square foot. I'm like, well, you are an R1C, so you're allowed to come in, that's more affordable. So I am hearing that more people are looking for maybe like 720. They are excited at the thought of not having to have almost 1,000 square foot home.
And we'll see how fast they sell when he starts to build them.
Yeah,
Well, he said he would build whatever they wanted,
correct. But no,
but I doubt
there's
he
other-
wants to build anything bigger than
We
600.
created a building envelope of 1,900 square feet or something like that. You could, 1,800 square feet, given the lot size and the lowered percentage of coverage and stuff. So there's no minimum on those lots that we created in R1C.
I know.
You could build a giant home,
Yeah.
35 feet tall.
That's not the intention, but
It's absurd.
Well,
And no basements.
Okay. One of the other, I'm gonna move on to the next strategy. We have expand administrative review, which we've talked about. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but ultimately that's a recommendation to ease the things that you want to take place. Knowing not everyone is gonna want an ADU, but expanding the administrative review for an accessory dwelling unit is gonna remove some of those barriers and make it more feasible for a homeowner to choose to take that route and add an additional unit. And that could be applicable for other things as we go through this list, so just keep it in mind, but it is a best practice that is recommended by a lot of professionals to expand administrative review. So next one, there's an option of creating, this is also tied into removing barriers to get the housing type and product that you want in your community. So pre-approved plans for small first-time builders. So for example, you could have a pre-approved accessory dwelling unit already designed. So if someone's adding one to their backyard, or, hey, this is above garage. I mean, not knowing everyone's gonna add their accessory dwelling unit differently, but you could have a pre-approved little, granny flat blueprint that they don't have to go pay anyone. This is already approved. It saves them a lot of hassle, and it just removes a barrier to that production. So, yeah. Go for it.
We've had communities ask, what does that do for the planning and zoning realm? That we find it be more prudent for the building side when they're going through for permitting. In that regard, instead of having to have a building inspector scrutinize plans, if they were able to take the pre-approved one and say, I'm using option A, it's already been approved, so it doesn't have to go through as much review process. We would still need to do the review of where it's going on the property though. But knowing what they're building to, as long as they stick to that plan, it's easier to move it through the review process.
I want to ask you three a question. It's going to fall over on me. What about containers for houses when people start to do that? Casey and I have seen some pretty cool things done.
They do so many cool things with it.
Yeah, so I'm just throwing that out there for everybody's just,
Containers, what do you mean?
Like shipping containers.
Oh, yeah.
You don't allow this in any, what's it called? Any
So
way
if
besides-
you're remodeling your house, you can't do that.
No, or if you have a vacant lot and you want to build a home, you
Container
can buy
home.
containers. But we don't allow that right now. But people love them because they're $1,000 a lot. So you can
Well,
build.
and they're pretty easily, I think, renovated into a small home.
my
Or
son,
accessory dwelling unit.
my son,
Correct.
when he remodeled his house, he got those little
Do you live in
containers.
it, or do you just store it?
No, he stored all the furniture and stuff in it until they got all the work done,
Correct. We
and
don't
then
allow-
put it all back.
We don't allow for that either, but what Sandy's talking about is people can convert them and insulate them and live in them.
Oh, yeah, I went to a camping place in the Ozarks,
Yes.
and they had all these shipping containers that they had converted into,
Correct.
Was it cool?
Dormitories.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
how-
it
when you
was
say
pretty
it's not
cool.
allowed, how do we prevent, if it meets building code,
Shipping containers are not allowed.
how do you prevent it?
It says shipping containers.
Can we change that?
Yes.
But there's
So,
also
the-
minimum ground floor probably we have to look at as well. To Sandy's point, it has to meet a lot of the building codes as
I've seen
well.
people
Right,
like
I mean, building
barns
codes
out
could
of
certainly limit using shipping containers, but.
The nice thing,
Look up the show
You say
building
zoning
outside the
specifically accepts,
Shipping containers are only allowed in ag land for ag purposes. That's
Right now.
exactly what it says.
I have
unless
a
we
few.
change it.
Yeah.
well, I think we should allow it for remodeling some of the older homes in the community.
Well, my thought was, it's one level, it's easy to move in. If you want to move it out later on, you can. And when I'm thinking about, exactly, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about seniors,
And it's
like with what you're doing with your family.
It probably is.
It
It's
is,
heavy.
yeah.
I don't know.
It's a
So,
solid metal building.
isn't it just a trailer without wheels?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty close.
Yeah,
It's heavy metal though. It's.
no, I understand structurally, it's not a trailer without, but in terms of planning and zoning, I don't want to look at a house made out of shipping
So there's
containers.
two differences here. I want to make sure, Larry, I'm understanding Larry too. There's modular homes, which come in pre-assembled,
Dude, that's,
and then there's the shipping containers.
yeah, different
That's a
things.
different,
They're very
that's a
similar.
different animal.
And as a builder, I can understand making a home out of shipping containers,
Well, the
but
shipping containers I saw out in the Ozarks, they had a spiral staircase inside and went in a sunning deck on the top. It was good.
oh, come on.
there's some pretty cool ones out there.
We wouldn't want that
These
here.
are the shipping containers.
I don't know.
Yes, this is the before. This
There's a
is the
woman who
after.
built one
Nothing wrong with it.
out in Richland Township.
But, you know, I'm
She
not-
used 3 or 4 shipping
That's not-
containers. I haven't been back by there. Have you seen that?
I agree,
Exists like
but you
that.
can
Of
have,
course, some of the apartments they put down there in Louis looks like that, to be honest with you.
anyway,
I'm
they
sorry.
can do
Okay,
cool
no, that's
things.
fine, something to consider. It sounds like there's interest. That definitely fits into like an accessory dwelling unit category.
Well, I didn't know we outlawed them.
Or
That's
I, just
interesting.
to check on like this, I don't know if that would meet the minimum square footage. Because in the current strategy above, only one zone has a square footage that goes down to 600. So right now, if this container is 600, it would only be allowed in one zone. And so that's why one of the strategies was
Yeah,
talking
you put
about
them together and cut the wall out.
Like,
Do.
yeah,
Well,
there's a lot
the ones
of.
I saw, they cut windows and doors
Way to stack
and
them.
they
I just
painted
showed
it,
her
and
about an
it looked
angle.
really
You know,
good.
I had a friend in Van Buren County, lived in an
I
old
look
box
at
car and did
Yeah,
that, you know?
that's
and-
kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it is the same thing, yeah.
there's excitement about the containers, so I like seeing that.
It's innovative. It's something nobody else is really doing. But I think
It could be a
Casey and
real
I were
headache.
looking at a couple that were backyards, he said, she shoulds.
Correct.
And they were awesome.
So we should have the shipping container neighborhood.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like we need to do a little more.
You could do that. that. You could
research
do
to
that.
see
I think you're
what
looking
other
ahead.
communities
Yeah,
have
I
think there's
policies.
That would be a draw to the community in
So
a
this is
certain area, right?
policy, possible
Good.
policy.
Yes.
We'd have to, I bet there's other communities doing it, and we can find some examples.
Yeah, there's whole communities.
First
There are
Like
container
Arizona
neighborhood.
and all that, I've seen them.
Yeah.
They paint them, they put roofs on them
I
and
just,
Yeah.
yeah, they, some of
extra
them they
living
side
outdoor
still,
space,
yeah.
some above.
Trush on them,
Yeah, the ones they had down there, of course, they rented them for people that weren't camping, but it was pretty cool.
Okay, all right. It's on, it's in there, I added it.
Kyle's going, oh geez.
Yeah. Maybe more. Yeah, so the three of us will probably get together and have to fine tune and tweak this. This is, really just our first kind of rough draft. And obviously the list in front of you is, something to get feedback and respond to, right? And then this will be completely reworked after we, kind of connect all the information we're talking about together and connect with the experts at the table with me here and figure out, okay, how do we prioritize and then who's in charge of what to make this happen. But let's keep rolling. The next one is more tied to new development and removing barriers for those new developers coming in. So, what tax incentives are typically used and how familiar, and how easy is it to use those different tools like the neighborhood enterprise zone pilot or even housing tax increment financing tools. So that's probably just, a strategy. Those are tools that help to.
What is the housing tax? I don't think I've.
Yeah, so it's this, if you're familiar with brownfield tax increment financing, it's essentially just like an arm of that.
Okay.
That is allowed in Michigan to be used for housing specifically.
In any district?
Yeah, anywhere, yep. It's pretty new, so communities are still learning how to work with it. I don't know if you've worked with any communities in Comstock yet. So I haven't worked with it directly, but essentially there's tax breaks for building housing through, they expanded what is considered a brownfield to include this like,
Building your
housing.
house out of contaminated area?
No, you
Well,
can,
no, it wouldn't be
you can
contaminated.
use it
So-
in any district.
So brownfield is a land that, could be environmentally contaminated. It could be adjacent or contiguous to a contaminated property. It could be a historic a property. So there's many kind of qualifiers. It doesn't mean it's grossly contaminated, right? That would have other barriers to. You can't put housing on, severely contaminated land for many reasons. So that's not what it's implying. It's basically saying, hey, this is an allowable use for this tax, and it helps to decrease that tax burden for the developer.
I was just thinking in terms of that, I can't remember where it was, but that property that was all contaminated and they put,
And all the kids were playing and all got,
well, they built all these houses, subdivisions in there and everybody was sick and
yeah.
they eventually had to close it all down, move them out.
The lenders probably wouldn't lend money in that area if it's all contaminated.
Right, again, this is not contaminated land, it's just using the
That's gonna be
same.
another-
And that's why they do the
tax
tax
increment
incentive too,
financing
to get the banks interested in loaning
Correct.
in that area, I would say.
I think Emily's Portage, they have a project near the lakes. I thought they were doing something to a tax increment financing where they're developing the properties, you can own the home for area medium income, but you're not owning the land, it's part of a land conservancy, it's a whole.
That's a community land trust, right, that's different. They're probably using housing TIF in their community land trust model. We do talk about community land trust as a strategy later, I
I've
believe
heard
it's
of
in
it,
here.
I'm not sure what it is.
But we can talk about that now. So a community land trust is essentially a model that allows permanent affordability or extended period affordability, where the land is owned by a entity and then the house is owned by the homeowner. And it's designed to be a in-between, so someone who's not quite ready for market rate home, it's this nice little, more affordable option. So the units are subsidized, and there's an equity sharing model that takes place at the sale of the home. But ultimately, it's a way to keep the house permanently affordable. So when that first-time home buyer, it's usually who they're targeting, people who've been renting for a long time. And again, if you can do a market rate product, this is not for you. Community Land Trust is for people who are not able to do that market rate product. And so then they purchase the home with the Community Land Trust, and then when they're ready to sell the home, the increase of value is shared, whatever was agreed upon at the beginning, and the Community Land Trust gets a piece to order to maintain that affordability, because then they subsidize the house for its next owner when it goes to resale. So it just keeps that house as an affordable unit. Let's say they're targeting 80% or 60% of area median income. It keeps that target for the next person. And the only reason they're able to do that is because of that land ownership that kind of mandates that it stays as an affordable unit to that targeted income. So it's one of the ways that Michigan as a whole has been exploring permanent affordability options. It is a great strategy, especially for growing communities like Kalamazoo County, because as land gets more expensive, this model is harder and harder to do. So the earlier you can kind of establish these like permanent affordable zones or areas or houses, the better, right? Like Traverse City, for example, they wish they had one, and there's not many houses left in it, but you know, that is huge to keeping workforce when you have increase in prices and making sure you have a diversity.
It's really hard to hire there.
Because it's hard to do the opposite. Once the land price goes up and, you know, this becomes, you know, our region becomes a really popular place to live someday, you know, we want to make sure that we will always have place for the workforce and multiple incomes to call home. And this is one of
I
those
struggle to
tools.
staff my store there significantly, and people drive from a distance to come in for that job because the people that live close to it don't need a, you know, $15 an hour
Yeah.
retail gig.
Yeah. So, I think I added a community land trust strategy in here. I did. It's under consider housing demands and needs for future generations and life stages. Encourage and allow cooperatives as well as community land trusts and resident ownership models. This is under C. So this is still goal 1. C number 3, strategy number 3 is where you'll see the community land trust strategy.
It's interesting.
Basically, it's asking for, hey, let's make sure we provide these middle, so when you look at the housing continuum picture here, there is, you know, there's the missing middle housing, which we've been talking about, different sizes, different maintenance requirements, your duplexes, your townhomes, your cottage courts. There's also a category here next to transitional housing that includes your community housing. And there's all different forms of community housing. Community land trust would be one of them, cooperatives, co-housing, cooperatives and co-housing.
What's the difference in like a cooperative versus community land trust?
Yeah, so, I mean, they could be one and the same depending on how the community land trust is set up, but, so generally how it works is a cooperative is like one unit where, or many units, but essentially they work collectively in that shared unit. Co-housing is more similar, this is very minutia, sorry.
No,
But co-housing is where it's probably more similar to community land trust in some ways. But co-housing would be, hey, I own my house, you own your house, we have this shared agreement, we have this shared space. And we're agreeing to cook meals together, to share a lawnmower, to work collectively on recycling and trash or whatever these other burdens are. It's more of, that's co-housing. And so your community land trust doesn't necessarily have that same setup, but it could if you wanted it
Well, the
to.
cooperative
Essentially, we all
has
do
kind of
like
a
that.
similar situation, because I
Cooperatives.
lived in one in Ann Arbor
Yeah.
when I was in college.
Very cool.
And they dissolved it and sold each unit as condo
Yeah, so.
for whoever is living there. The price
Yeah,
is
so
really
there's a lot of
cheap.
different models and ways, but in general, like cooperatives is typically like, there's a cooperative in the city of Kalamazoo, they have them in East Lansing still, there's quite a few. And I was actually on the cooperative board
Yeah, they
for a
have their
while.
own board.
Yep, and they
They
have
elect
multiple houses,
officials.
but you rent a room and you agree to live cooperatively inside that house, but you don't own the house. You just have, that room rights, right? And so co-housing is where you own your house, or it's a condo situation, and you have like broader cooperative agreements with other houses to share services or amenities, lawnmowers, meals, etc. And that's agreed upon depending on the community. So community land trusts don't necessarily have any of those provisions, but they could. But essentially, they have the support system of the landowner is what they have, that community land trust model.
So do you pay the landowner?
So in the equity sharing model is where that comes in, as far as like the payment, in the community land trust model specifically,
Yeah.
yes.
How does the landowner get any money out of it? Just
They-
when they're sold?
Yes, when they're sold.
So-
They also structure the deal for maintenance. So at the beginning, that's why they need all these incentives to make them work, because they're subsidizing the houses, they're
Yeah,
making
'cause-
sure they have long-term affordability. But that is the trickiest part of a community
Somebody
land
has
trust.
to do the maintenance and somebody has to make
Well,
sure
the
it's being
homeowners are in
done.
charge of their home, so the homeowners maintain their home.
Yeah, but I've seen how that works. If you don't own it, really, if you don't.
Well, they do own their homes. They own their homes and they can sell their homes.
Okay.
And they can make changes to their homes and make updates to their homes. They are the owner of the home.
Is
There's just
there-
provisions on the resale.
On the resale though, are they gonna financially benefit?
So if,
Like,
let's say.
Is there, do they have ability to earn equity on their home?
Yes, they do.
Okay,
But it's a shared equity
Sure.
model. They share the equity with the landowner.
but there's still some
Yep.
equity that would come back to them
Yes.
as a homeowner?
As long
Okay.
as that home value increased.
Okay. What does it look like in those situations, like traditionally, or what do you see for maintenance of then the shared property? Like, is that a challenge
And
to
that'd definitely
maintain?
be like an HOA, you're putting into a pool of funds and the committee of home.
Yes. Some community
Owners.
land trusts have HOAs that will help,
Okay, okay.
that can function similar to an HOA,
I
yes.
think these are more densely populated areas, remodeled structures.
There's no, other than like someone owns the land and the homeowner owns the house, and then there's an equity sharing model when the homeowner sells, like the format of the HOA can all be determined by the development of the community land trust, right? So, you can get, creative to what works for the housing development. Portage is working on one. I think it's going well. I don't know if you guys have any more details on it, but,
I know Grand Rapids has one. So.
Grand Rapids has quite a few, and I actually, if you're interested, it's very much tangent, but I have a recording of a community land trust one from Grand Rapids and one from Fremont on the Regional Housing Partnership website. So I help MISHDA lead a 7-county regional housing partnership tied to their statewide housing plan. It has this its website is swmirhp.org. And on the resources tab, you will see a bunch of videos. One of them is from a housing summit where we recorded the presentation from 2 speakers who spoke about community land trusts. One was urban, one was rural. And that will give you a really good kind of 101 of how it works and how complicated it can get. But that would be a good intro. There's also other information on that website that you can check out. But if you're interested in community land trusts, I recommend checking out that recording. Okay, I'm gonna go back up to objective A under goal 1. I'm gonna highlight community land trust as interest. in that particular strategy. Ultimately, part of it is just being aware, as far as like, how do we encourage and allow? It's making, double checking the zoning ordinance and making sure there's nothing prohibiting that type of development. Can unrelated people live together, for the example of cooperatives? Can you, allow different shared land models? Just double checking that within the zoning ordinance. Okay, so we talked about tax incentives. Okay, the next possible strategy or idea we have here is zoning ordinance to allow multifamily residential and or mixed-use development in all commercial zoning districts. Is that already allowed?
Mm-hmm. It'd be a challenge.
Okay, it would be a challenge.
Unless we do the Comstock Center area, because most of our higher commercial is a high commercial.
Yeah.
It's the Meyer, the Menards, fast food. It's not conducive currently to any type of residential.
So yeah, our ordinance does not allow for that as is.
Okay.
So Comstock Center area, and we might be trying to figure out how the planning commission feels for that type. I think the TA thinks that they're looking at potentially some type of riverfront project as well.
Okay. So essentially this objective is really helpful because it said, hey, we already have water and sewer infrastructure here. We already have density here. We already have paved surfaces here. Why not add housing here, especially for people who want to walk to amenities? So if you have a central location with amenities, then it makes sense to allow multifamily, mixed use, these higher density uses to be in that same space. You determine how many, how dense or what is applicable, but essentially the main objective of this strategy would be, hey, we have existing infrastructure, we have the water and sewer, let's put housing there, because it's smart and it's efficient. And so looking at where would this be applicable, I think you just kind of ran through some scenarios, but really considering that is, an effective and efficient use of your existing infrastructure, and infrastructure is very expensive.
This was back up to 7 under A.
This is 8. Oh, sorry. Goal 1, objective A, number 8. Right?
No,
Oh,
7.
7? Okay, sorry.
Oh, you're
7.
right. This is changed.
Yeah, must have meant
Containers.
Oh, I added shipping container. That's
I'm in
okay.
favor of this. I think that it's, I think you might actually get improvement on some of the older buildings that exist when you allow a different use. So like, while it may not be desirable for a business because you're not getting the same traffic that you did when the building was originally constructed, making it residential gives you use versus allowing the building to just sit and deteriorate. So I like that personally.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's a good practice.
Okay. Okay. Move to the next one. Oh, do we need, okay, we have about 30 minutes left. Do we want to take a quick break? Do you stretch your legs? Put some water? Eat some sugar?
Good.
You want to power through? Okay. You sure?
Good combo with like 4 sides.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. If you need to get up. I don't want to hold you captive as long as you set, right? So,
Well,
everyone got some sugar. All right, so we're gonna keep going. The last strategy under this particular objective, under goal 1, it's broad. So I wanted to bring, and mostly it was to bring your attention to this really great resource that's actually gotten national attention that was created by our Michigan Association of Planning. It's called the Zoning Reform Toolkit. There is a link on your page. I can send it digitally as well, so you can actually click all the links in this document. But essentially it has kind of all the best practices, and it has examples throughout actually the state of Michigan of how to kind of use this toolkit to ensure we're providing the most opportunity for expansion of different uses and different incomes within the community. So I, went through it and kind of picked which ones I thought would be most applicable, but this is just a kind of a catch-all saying, hey, you guys should check this out. I did bring this copy with me that I will give away to one lucky member. If you hate looking at online documents, this might be yours at the end of the day here. So, but yeah, it's a very helpful guide. It explains even there's a nice little, we had that whole conversation about what is an accessory dwelling unit. Here's a whole visual on accessory dwelling units, on missing middle, on, how it can be used in different layouts. And so it's really just a great, it gives some good visuals in here. So it's a really good resource that I just want to make sure that you're aware of, because there could be other ideas that you like in this book that you want to incorporate.
How can we get more than one copy?
They are very expensive to print. This is $52.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's online.
But it's online for free. If you need, but like I said, I know some people really need the physical copy. Talk to your staff, and if there's a budget for everyone to get a copy, like I said, I brought my one for you.
Training, I guess.
Yeah.
Training.
Yeah.
Training budget.
Training budget. But yes, I don't have the budget to give everyone one, but definitely something that, yeah, we talked. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna move to B. So we're still on goal 1. B, preserve good quality rental and ownership housing for households of all incomes. And so we've talked about ways to do that, but some of the things that came up in the survey was a lot about beautification. So the trash, the unmowed lawns, and other nuances. So I wanted to bring, because it was something that came up in the survey, I wanted to bring that to your attention and kind of, see where is there room to enforce or expand code enforcement for those things.
Yeah, ours is pretty strict as is. I know that we have one enforcement officer, and you're gonna talk money very quickly.
Okay.
Yes, enforcing things like this takes a lot of court fees. So I think it's
Okay.
one thing that we could discuss, not me, but Sandy could maybe discuss eventually with the board, is upping that code enforcement budget. I know it's a little stretched.
Okay, so that resolution would be increase the budget would be the topic of discussion.
I know he has talked to me about that, Dakota has. But then William and I were working on a project with Mary from the community center.
Okay.
And we haven't had a chance to talk to Kyle about it yet, but it was kind of on the thought process of before these people get to court, that he would alert Mary to these people, and we would have a committee, and we would give volunteers to go out and help with this.
Yeah.
I was
Which,
just gonna ask, this is a wild idea, maybe a little bit of a squirreled off tangent, but there's a lot of people in our community seemingly that do outdoor care work of some way, shape, or form, including people who probably just do it personally. But could you create something that would incentivize those businesses to help support the community in that way, right? So if you create that committee and you do that, let's say the lawn care businesses or the folks that have means and tools that are businesses in the community, is there some sort of tax incentive or something that could be offered that would then encourage them to want to support the community and keep it clean? Does that make sense?
I know where you're headed, and I don't think that's going to bite anywhere, but it's a good thought. There's another program that I have worked with in Edison neighborhood, and it's called the Tool Shed.
Yes.
And when I first was elected, I did talk to Mary Gustus about that, and what it is they have a little tool shed down there, but it's not little. I mean, they just got a wood chipper. So, I mean, you pay $30 a year to join this, and if you can't afford it, they'll waive the fees, but, and he has expressed to me that he would be interesting to let Comstock join with his to expand it, and the township can't do it because it's tax money, so it would have to be, again, Mary from the community center. And she did express some interest in doing that as well.
She has a
So-
lot of programs to
Yeah,
help,
she-
like
and she-
elderly people.
She knows the elderly people that need help, so with hooking up her with with Dakota, and I'm sure Dakota would be for it, but it needs to be ran past the township board or past Scott Hess at least, because Dakota works for Scott.
Right.
So, that's just something we just haven't done yet, but Mary has the means financially to help with this through the community center.
That's cool.
And she's also said that it's far less expensive to keep people in their homes than
Right.
to throw them out.
It is, and especially when you have lower income individuals, there's not a lot of housing options for them. So when you have your cash-strapped seniors that are making, Social Security, $20,000 a year or whatever it may be, and they own their home, they're just making it by, but there's not another place, there's not many options for them to go, right? So maintaining that's something that we actually talked about at Community Homeworks. So you talked about a tool shed. Community Homeworks, it has a tool lending library as well. So that's actually strategy 3 under the strategy 1. Strategy 1 focuses on, code enforcement and trash. Strategy 3 is where are there outreach and education opportunities? How do we make sure that people are aware of the programs that exist, right?
Yeah,
So what are we doing? So there's a lot of things, whether it's newsletters, websites, pamphlets, but there's, weatherization tools, USDA loans, Michigan Saves, Community Homeworks, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunities for people to either get low interest loans to do repairs or to get tools to do the repairs themselves. So the tool lending library is, you really should check it out. At Community Homeworks, it's like you said, there's a small donation that you make in order to be a member, but it's a pay what you can kind of model. And they have 800 different tools that you could loan and use to help repair. They also do classes. Some other models, like Lansing does a Tuesday Tool Man, which is more of along your lines of thinking of getting volunteers who would then volunteer their expertise. Typically they're retired and they're looking to get engaged in the community. How do we kind of activate their knowledge to maybe build ramps and things for people within the community that are needed, so.
Even just mow lawns, right?
Right,
Like,
and so
that's one of our biggest complaints,
So we have this information, right, but the strategy would be, how do we connect this information to the community? Is there a page on the website that has a link to all these resources, et cetera?
It goes through the community center, that's where it needs to go.
Or it goes to the community center, right? And so making sure that then the community center and the planning are connected, or that there's information being shared, but that is definitely, that is proposed strategy 3.
Amber, that ties into, I think, 2 that Emily has on there as well, to an extent, is the educational component, or even creating distribution of flyers. If it's including the tax bill, summer, winter, that webpage that gets inserted there, say, hey, here's all the different resources that you can contact. It goes to most homeowners.
That's a great
It goes
idea.
to mortgages.
I love that,
We try to do that, to solicit survey responses, because we know a lot of people get tax bills in that regard. Some of them we see such low return when we try to publish on websites, so we'll do mailers and tax bills to help try to get it out there. Some communities do that as well with water bill, like a quarterly newsletter as well, and just says, here's what's going on, here's the resources, and here's you can get an action, like a Sandy Southern Community Center or Mary in that regard. But try to get that information out there. Others have done, they'll advertise, or you can put in an advertisement in that newsletter. They're a lawn care company, and say, hey, we do a lot of work, not subsidized per se, but lower cost to area residents because of that. So there's, I know Sandy mentioned it earlier, but some volunteer groups and porters have gotten together too, and they headed up to some of the, say, manufactured housing communities who have really no resources, and they'll go out there for a weekend, build staircases and other items, but they coordinate that too, so.
Kalamazoo used to have tool time, men. I don't know if they still do.
I don't know.
It's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
They were the Tuesday, and they were out of, over on Crosstown Parkway is where came from senior services, now that I think about it. So I don't know if they still exist or not. The ones I know, I'm sure all deceased now, but
So it just would take a little bit of digging, okay, making sure, and I can help, create that, that flyer if that's helpful, but essentially let's, make sure that people are aware of the services that are available. The last one, under B is, create an Airbnb ordinance. Do you want one?
No,
create a what? I'm sorry.
Yes, no? Okay.
no.
Did you say why? Is that what you said?
Create a what? I didn't catch it.
An Airbnb
Airbnb.
ordinance.
Oh, yeah, no.
We do have some in the township, but we just don't have an ordinance for it.
Okay.
So,
Short-term rental
Correct.
would be a better title.
yes, yes, we don't have, yeah, but there are some
Yeah.
that exist that we just don't.
Scratch that one. Scratch.
Scratch, check.
Thanks, Ellen.
All right. Thank you, nothing. Got it. C.
We hear you, but we're gonna go a different direction.
So consider housing demand and needs for future generations and life stages. So actually, some of these,
I feel like we kind of talked about
yeah, we kind of talked about it. So strategy 1, I feel like, is a repeat. We talked about, allowing single families conversion. We talked about community land trusts already. Strategy 4,
The one in Portage looks cool. I just
The
Googled
community
it.
land trust?
Yeah, I want to go see it, but at
Yeah.
least online it looks really cool.
yeah, that would actually be a good field trip. You could tie it with these books. Everyone's come out to the community land trust in Portage. Yeah. Good, gotta see it firsthand, see how it works. Okay, so, all right, we can kind of skip C. I think some of these let's go to goal 2. This is more focused on environmental responsibility and sustainability. Kind of acknowledging that many components of Comstock are natural. You have preserves, you have parks. So how do you kind of keep that theme and that feel throughout the entire township? So these are some ideas. First objective is A, promote healthy and safety in neighborhoods close to multiple transportation opportunities. So this is mostly focusing on how do we, encourage maybe the creation of neighborhood organizations for community relationship building. Talking about establishing structural housing grants, programs for low-income homeowners.
Emily, is that like HUD loans you're referencing there?
For the grants for low-income homeowners? No, that is mostly tied to, that would have to be like foundation dollars. So there was, I think that the inspiration for that particular strategy is there was some research tied to a decrease in crime in some neighborhoods based on investment in structural repairs of low-income housing. So in the study, they did like grants of $20,000 for individuals of specific incomes in a very, kind of heavily higher crime area. And they kind of observed, based on the number of grants that they gave out for that area and over the period of time, how the crime changed and it decreased. So mostly that is tied to, okay, how do we, is there opportunity to provide other than the Michigan Saves and the do-it-yourself, with the community homeworks model, could we explore or create a separate fund for Comstock residents to access structural repairs are usually the most delayed and needed. here we talk, so this is all kind of tied to safe neighborhoods, so creating community. Do you have a neighborhood organizations? Or-
Not that
I don't believe so.
Facebook pages.
Yeah, Facebook pages, okay. So yeah, just something to think about when you're, building relationships within neighborhoods to create more connectivity. Let's see, is there anything else in A that stands out to anyone? As we're running out of time here, but.
3 and 4, we do not have a rental portfolio, so we do not know what the rental units are.
Oh, okay.
So, something that.
Yeah, rentals are only, like I said, 32% of your total housing stock, so it is relatively low.
Mhm.
But as you expand and grow, you're gonna wanna have more of a pulse on what's happening. Because those who can will get away with
Correct.
stuff when they think no one's paying attention. And we don't want them to get too dilapidated. What we typically see is that those rental units are the ones that get neglected and ignored and not maintained. And that's where we lose housing units, because these landlords aren't maintaining them. And so it is something to keep an eye on and consider, okay, well, maybe we should be keeping track of these rentals, knowing that, we're gonna have a few more as we grow, and making sure that we can kind of consider maybe ordinances tied to that to ensure that we're not losing that housing stock.
So we don't have where they pay a fee for a yearly fee or a 3-year fee or anything like that? We don't have no inspections they have to go to get past or anything like that?
No.
To rent a home?
To rent home, because I know
Rent any property, yeah, Kalamazoo certainly does.
Kalamazoo does, I know
Rental
Bell
inspections
Creek.
every year.
My cousin owns a rental
And
property
some
down by
outlets,
the
some
college.
townships
Consider, I guess.
Just remember that when you start considering that, I understand where you're headed, but that gets passed on to the renter.
Yes.
Because I know Battle Creek is $500 every 2 years.
Oh, it's,
This
I don't know what it is. in
Kalamazoo Township used to be $200, and I think they lowered it.
Who inspects it? Is it the building inspector, or who inspects for the cities?
Well,
It's probably a whole new
Code
position.
enforcement officers that I know that inspected
Yeah.
Bell Creek.
there now.
But $500 is just
I didn't
astronomical.
know it was $500, Sandy.
For the
It's a lot.
landlord?
I know Bedford Township went
I'll
raised
find
their
out.
Jim, do you
prices.
recall?
I'll find out. My cousin has a rental house down by the college, down by Western.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't believe it, because we have 1 or 2 over there.
Again,
Envious
it
of how
shouldn't be
cheap she bought that
punitive.
house.
It should cover administrative costs, but not be
I
a
understand what
burden.
you're saying, it's just passed on.
A lot of them do. We don't, but a lot of people do pass it on because it's the cost of doing business. But I completely understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do have your slumlords, but then you have your good landlords
Right.
also,
It's a
so.
push and pull. So renters is where we see the most cost burden for your community. Yes, it's only 32% of your population, but that's still, it's still a significant chunk of individuals, and it's just something to consider. It's, right now, these are all draft strategies, so it's like, maybe there's stages of this. What does that look like? And that seems like, more conversation that we don't have time today.
But I do have one thing I really want to throw out here right now while
Yeah.
we're talking about these rentals. When we ticket our people that are in the rentals, we're ticketing the landlord, not the person in them.
Correct.
And that is an issue.
Like
It's the
for
landowner
lawn.
that's getting the ticket, not the person living there. Right, it's the property owner, you are correct. And I don't know where to go with that, but I'm just throwing that out there for further conversation later on. Because I don't know if that's the right thing to do, because if you rent a property, can you go on it once you've rented it?
Well, same thing for, let's say, there's a homeless person living on.
Most of them put that in the lease, that they're allowed.
Well, I'm
in
just saying-
contact ahead of time that they're coming.
I'm just saying that sometimes the landlord is the one getting crucified over who they were good enough to rent to.
He's responsible.
Well,
The
I
landlord is
realize that.
Responsible for ordinance.
Joe, I realize that, but what I'm saying is, sometimes you cannot go on the property after you rent it to take care of that issue.
But you can put it in the lease, like, that's all about constructing the lease, because
I agree. So, but that's good, that's all I wanted to say about it.
So, yes. more
There are
discussion.
issues with it, yeah.
Yeah, more discussion, and
Yep.
obviously, like I said, it's only 32% of your population, but at the same time, it is something to keep an eye on and start being proactive about how many do we have, and who are the landlords, and where they at.
How
Let's
do
keep
you
a
track
pulse.
that? How do you find out who they are?
If we have approval.
You can,
Pay tax.
the PRE status is one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Homestead or non-homestead,
Yeah.
you don't get everybody, but it's a way to understand if it's owner occupied or not.
And where
Yeah.
the tax bill goes to,
And-
too.
Okay,
Yeah.
And over time, you'll eventually catch most of them too.
yeah. 'Cause I
Yeah.
know I've got 2 in my neighborhood that are.
I'm amazed we don't have a list. I'm surprised. Most communities do
Yep.
The
keep
one,
track of
they
the
just
rentals.
completely remodeled before they rent it again.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good renters then.
Can we plan on
Or
that?
do
Yes.
other people
Okay,
track
so
it
we
out?
have 5 minutes, or 3 minutes now.
Sorry.
We'll do citizen comment just to make sure that it's, we touch that base,
Okay.
and so if you wanna.
At this point, we'll move into citizen comment. Citizen may state their name and address, may speak only one time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. The person speaking has the floor, and no other citizen shall speak during someone else's time. During this time, you will be making statements to the board without discussion from the board members, but you are welcome to make appointments with planning and zoning staff to discuss your comments further. Please keep comments clean and respectful. We are now open for citizen comment. Jim, you want to make a comment?
Had 2, lost one.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we will close citizen comment at this point.
Perfect. And the next item is informational, no action items. So I know that the goal was to have the final report on the 13th. And so probably another meeting before that to finish our talking points. When are we thinking for that? That only
You have a pretty busy October.
I'm gonna say, the goal is to have it done November 13th. So do we do it 3:30 October 9th?
Or do we
Push
move,
back to November
or
13th?
we push back November 13th to make sure we have time to.
How long do you need?
Well, yeah, so we made about halfway, and I can clean up some of the repeat strategies in there as well. So we'll probably, one more session, we'll probably be able to get through it all.
If we want to do November 13th instead, we can do that, and then our next meeting in December would be,
Oh, we got,
I won't be here on the 13th.
would be the 11th.
I will be gone the 13th of
November?
November.
So then, if we did push it back, it would be December 11th, would be the final.
Oh, I see.
The final
Okay.
report.
You available on the 9th of October?
No, I'm good for that.
I'm good for the 9th.
Yeah, let's get it done.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
We're workers. Let's get her done.
I'm not available that night.
Oh, man.
I know I'm on vacation, I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
We're busy the 16th, so unless we
Can't do
do,
the 16th?
yeah, well, 16th, we have a different meeting
Okay.
at 3:30. So then that leads us to November 13th, unless we did a special meeting before that, but it would be November 6th, without the option. But November 13th would work.
Do we always want the meetings before
So we could do a different day, but we're pretty,
Is there,
Selection that
does that
week.
make it harder or easier?
is there an option not in the middle of the workday? Like, or are we just
Yeah,
stuck
we could
with
do
that?
I mean,
We
can
can
you do a different day at a later time?
Yes.
Because it's just really getting complicated to like,
understand,
Yeah.
understandable.
Let's just pick a different day.
It's
It's after work.
The 6th, is not the, so the 6th is the election week?
it is election.
Yes.
Yes.
The 4th is the election.
Okay, so the 30th we're busy. The 23rd,
No, can't do.
township board meetings are 6th and 20th October. October 13th.
What about the 12th through the 17th? There's the 13th to the 17th of October, somewhere in there.
The 14th.
I could
The
do,
16th, you got CIP coming. so,
Right.
You know, bring a cushion for your chair for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I was wondering if the
is that too
14th.
much?
The 14th of October
Yeah.
is Tuesday. That would be a Parks and Rec, but the Parks and Rec meeting, we're fine with that.
What about the,
So you can do 14th?
Is that a Tuesday, did you
That's
say?
a Tuesday.
Yeah.
21st?
Tuesdays are not good for me.
the 17th or Tuesday, the 21st?
Tuesday's not good for Joe.
Oh, that's right. What about Wednesday,
The 22nd?
the
Better for
22nd?
me,
Just remember,
At
that is the
6?
MAP conference downtown.
Oh, it
so
is.
if you are
Right.
going
Yeah, yeah,
to-
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to that.
So,
Oh, good. I
Did
thought
you,
guys were going
did you
down.
sign me up?
Yeah, so there's an issue with we're getting charged the non-member rate, even though we are members, like 150 extra, so working through that, and then you'll be signed up hopefully Monday.
What about Monday, the 20th?
Okay.
Okay.
Monday, the
Alright.
20th
October
October?
20th?
Township board meeting?
Yes.
Township board meeting.
Can we meet in
I
a
can
different
do it
room?
Monday.
What's your township board?
I can't be in two places at once, but I, no, they're lucky I'm not.
November 13th, we don't currently have anything on the docket, actually it won't be.
Well, that's Columbus Day.
Well, November 13th, we have a meeting.
Oh, do we? October 13th? We have-
November
Oh,
13th.
November, okay, I thought you were saying. I
Yeah,
have-
we
Nothing on
do.
the docket yet,
If you want to wait that long,
so if you can come at 6, and then keep our agenda light, so then we meet from 6 to 8. Our agenda could not have anything else on it, unless we wanted to stay till 9.
No,
No,
not really.
So if
Rather than
application,
that than come a different day, though.
5 on the 13th, can we move that meeting up an hour? Would that work?
5 would be doable.
Or 5:30?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything like 5 and later is a lot easier to swing than 3:30 in the
Yeah.
middle of the day.
Yes.
Well, I'm wondering if we did 5, just to give us a buffer in case you do
And
get any application. in.
Not that this is as controversial as other things that we are solving for, but I do believe that there's a public perception that we put the meetings earlier in the day
To
to
hide stuff.
avoid
Yeah.
public
Yeah, they think we're
participation.
trying to hide stuff.
With CRP was at 6, we would've got home till 11.
I know.
So, like, there's-
I get it, we all understand it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about
just
the
saying,
comments, but
like,
Yeah, there's a need for it,
I'm not worried about comments except when they say I'm not working.
but, so, we take our whole.
Okay, Kyle, 5 would be great. I would appreciate 5 instead of 3:30. Anything that
So, our meeting will be changed from 6 PM on the 13th to 5 PM Saturday.
Give them like 5 to 7, and then we'll be able to be efficient after that. And we'll-
Okay. Yep.
Does that work for those here?
Well, so what day are we at?
November 13th,
Yeah,
meeting will start,
at 5?
we may not have the same format though, Emily.
Okay.
We might have to do podium style.
5 o'clock on the 13th of November?
5 o'clock, 13th of November.
we were all sitting here wondering why we were sitting in this format.
It was good,
It was great.
Conversation.
Yeah, it was great, but we didn't know.
I don't want to present, I wanted to have equal
Yeah, it was fantastic.
communication. And when I'm standing in front of the podium, it feels like I'm presenting, but I want it to be collaborative. These are your goals and strategies.
I liked it like this.
I don't want to be lecturing you.
Yeah.
So this is the format I prefer when we're brainstorming and doing this workshop.
Yeah.
I need to go sign checks, so.
Thank you
Can I
for your
be
time.
dismissed?
Yes, you're dismissed, sorry.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, meeting adjourned.
Dinner 5?